So Iran just betrayed Hamas by playing this little theater of war against the Israelis, telegraphing their strike in advance, allowing the Israelis to strike their radar system in Isfahan without any reaction whatsoever. So basically what they've done, essentially they've admitted that they've lost any kind of faith that Hamas can be rescued, because what they've done with this whole shenanigan is essentially allowed Israel to get out of the rut it was, with the exception of a few yahoos over there at Columbia University. Oh, the popular opinion basically went a little bit further towards the Israelis, who are now not the aggressor anymore. They've been attacked by a sovereign country. And the whole Palestinian issue has moved a little bit to the side with the whole Iranian warfare threats. Now, as the Israelis moved a little bit closer towards being an underdog in the popular opinion, they've also gotten some money from the US. You can argue about what the extent of the aid that will go directly to Israel, but it's probably in the $15 to $16 billion, which is a lot. They've also got a green light to go into Rafah, an operation that the US have opposed for many, many, many weeks, but now is absolutely green-lighted by the US without actually admitting it. They're going to look the other way. So after 200 days of war, what happened is that the Israelis were not still able to collapse the Hamas rule in Gaza. It's still there. And they haven't been able to return all the hostages, which are still partially in Gaza. However, the biggest strategic goals have been definitely achieved as far as the Abraham Accords are alive and kicking. The Middle East Aerial Defense Pact Alliance, whatever you want to call it, is very much active, as we saw on the eve of the attack of the Iranian regime versus the Israelis. The entire Middle East is now basically out in the open. The whole cards are on the table. It's clear who's against who. Saudi Arabia and Israel and Jordan and the UAE are now playing together above board. So it's just a question of time until the Abraham Accords actually come to fruition. So, there's a lot of achievements, but there's a lot of complexities. Now, as the US basically allows the Israelis to start working on Rafah, as the Egyptians basically stop the whole rhetoric, if the Israelis go to Rafah, it's war, it's the cancellation of our peace agreement. Pretty much the ground has been set. And also you heard the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, come out and admit that within the next couple of weeks, Israel will actually start the Rafah operation, and it's been approved. It's being planned right now. It's going to be a very complex operation. I'm not going to lie to you. You have to take out about 1 million, 1.5 million people out of Rafah, which are uninvolved civilians, and essentially relocate them elsewhere. That's going to be very complicated. That's probably going to take a month at the very least just to move people elsewhere. Now, on top of it, you have to set up the infrastructure, plan the delivery of humanitarian aid, the medical facilities. It's going to be massive logistical operation before Israel fires even the single bullet. Now, after that's done, the Israelis have to deal with 4 battalions of Hamas, which are absolutely still intact. And in fact, they've been using the last couple of weeks of a forced ceasefire to actually reinforce themselves. So that's going to be a tough nut to crack. The momentum that the IDF, the Israeli military, had before this whole thing screeched to a halt, the momentum has now stopped. And basically, we had a couple of weeks of nothing. So the Israelis will have to restart the war machine, which is not easy, and it's always a complicated thing to do. On top of it, now that the Iranian-Israeli conflict, at least the direct one, seems to be over, you can expect a lot more from Hezbollah, a lot more damage, a lot more firepower. Especially if the Israelis step foot into Gaza, into Rafah again, you can expect Hezbollah to be more aggressive. Now, the Israelis have already cleared a lot of their northern population, creating essentially a security strip inside their country, which is absolutely insane to think about. On top of it, once the Israelis are done with Rafah, once they figure out what's going to be the structure of the civilian rule in Gaza, which is a problem of epic proportions, they'll have to address the north, because right now on the north, Hezbollah has basically been set by Iran back to the default settings, which is Iran does not want to be involved directly with Israel anymore, but Hezbollah will be their long arm to badger Israel and to cause a lot of mayhem. Now, Hezbollah right now is basically sitting on a very simple decision for them. They're saying to themselves, look, we're ready, we're prepped, we have 150,000 missiles, rockets, we have lots of trained men. This terrain in the north of Israel and the south of Lebanon is not Gaza, it's not flat, it's mountainous, it's complex, it's a hellhole. We're going to keep badgering the Israelis. And the way Hassan Nasrallah has been managing this conflict, it seems like he's not interested in a diplomatic solution with Israel. To him, the analysis is very simple. He looks at it and says, look, the Israelis have spent 6 months fighting in Gaza against a lesser enemy. And they spent a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of their reserves are tired. Do they really want another war with a better opponent, with a harder terrain, which they're not familiar with? So he's thinking, hey, if I'm going to hold out on this, I'm not going to negotiate, eventually the US is going to force the Israelis, and the Israelis will oblige to come in with a sweet offer I can't refuse, to put the weapons down and just chill for the next couple of years. However you spend this, the Israelis have one hell of a task ahead, and I don't envy their decision makers. But get your popcorn, it's the Middle East, you know it's going to be interesting. I'll see you in the next one.